interviewed by Reverend Eyre. His mother lived in Hernley, and I've seen at least 5 different spellings of the word Hernley in all the literature, so I haven't a clue what the right one is. And he offered it first for a perpetual lease, it's described as, and then became later a gift, and as I say, a very generous gift. His mother died in Hernley in 1926, and in 1927 the hospital moved in. But they were very worried then that that hospital would be taken off them. So it is in the minutes, in capitals, it should never be used except as a hospital, and it should not become a state or municipal hospital. They were not, you know, they were wary back in 1920s what would happen to it. So that was Reverend Eyre. So these are the posters for the opening. The person who opened it was Sir William Lister, ophthalmic surgeon. So 10 beds, private rooms, theatre, and the accommodation on the ground floor, and that's where I lived for 6 months. So here we have the Pan Road site. So, there is my department, down in the bottom here. Casualty, clinic rooms, X-ray, going here, little bits and bobs along here. There's a little kitchen, or there was. I can't remember what that was at the bottom there, never went in. This was the mortuary. This was the old theatres. I never went in that end, I expected it was storage. Somewhere in this section is the children's ward and the murals. And then you've got, coming along here, you've got the ladies' ward, and ladies' ward, I think, here, and then you've got the day room here. Okay? You'll never guess what that is, I'm fairly sure. That was the Wessex, supplied by Wessex, renal dialysis unit. And people used to come there and get their renal dialysis. For quite a few years that was there. Okay, and that's not my car, but that's where I used to park it. So here's another view of the hospital. Now, showing the community in action. This is the British Legion. Lots of people involved in clearing the site and building extensions, 1957 to 59, and some of the names that you can see there. The only, on the photo on the right, oops, the matron is holding the shovel. Right. Laying the first brick, there's Cecil Quick, who led the team at that time. And then, big 2-page spread is down in the museum, Cecil Quick's article, "We Built Our Own Hospital." Now you need to remember this was taken over by the NHS, and the community was pouring in money, masses of money, supporting. And he's saying here, nobody would do it for us, that means the NHS. Okay? The NHS wouldn't pay for what they wanted to see here. So the whole town set to work. We raised money, laid the bricks, and soon we'll be saving lives. That's what they wrote. But a big article there. Nurses providing refreshments on the right there at the top. Women's Institutes got involved. So interesting on this picture, you've got Ida Quick. Ida Quick's in the middle there. She still lives in Upline. Yvonne Tolman's here, as I know her. Vid, she still lives in Lyme. And this gentleman here is Reverend Seal. And he's quite important in the story of the murals, because I didn't realise until more recently that he actually did work on the murals to help maintain them and touch them up. So that was the person that did that. So you've got the Legal Friend in action. Gwyneth Cheney is one of those. So they were building the physiotherapy department. That was the appeal plan, 1972, 1975. They were doing another extension. So people were very, very active in this town. Then we've got the rebirth of the Lyme Hospital booklet. So Gwyneth Cheney, this is funny wording, was she who got hold of the original documents from which the booklet was produced, now in the county archives. But it was written by Joan. So I think the reference has to go the other way around. Joan first. But they were a team. I'm sure they were a team. There was the services in the 1980s, and I'm sure I've forgotten some of those. Murals in the children's ward. I really wanted to find out what had happened to the murals. I could remember them because every time I walked into this little men's ward there they were. I was not aware of who had done them. I'd never heard of Reverend Seal, I don't think, doing any work on them, not sure. But nobody talked about the background to it all. I think we just enjoyed them. They were just there. We always referred to that ward as the children's ward. I know I certainly did. And I was getting a bit down about this, that I hadn't been able to find out about the murals, because I asked lots of people and nobody seemed to know. So I then had the visit to the Lyme Regis Museum, end of October. And I was like a big kid. Honestly, I think the research team thought I was a bit balmy, really. But I got ever so excited because I found the newspaper articles, Dorset Echo, November 2001. And here were the murals. So they were there in 2001. And they were being covered over by David Rose, that you can see. There's David Rose here. He covered them over. We found out later he varnished them and put hardboard over them and then screwed that to the wall. If you look behind him, just there, you will see that they go down the other wall, because my memory was that they were all around the room. They weren't just on one wall. So the story was, on this article, Wyndham Payne, he was a youth leader. He'd taken 2 boys, because they were ill, to the children's ward at the hospital. They were looked after, he was happy, and so he offered to do these paintings. So that was the story. It was also the impression here was that this was done in 1937. That is incorrect, okay? Because I went back to the minutes, so that's wrong, but it's what the story tells you. So there are the murals. It was very exciting. So from there, it got more interesting. So that was on the Monday I went into the museum. Heather invited me for coffee on the front. So I took my photos with me because I knew she'd be interested, but I hadn't been able to do any searching on them at that time. So we sat and looked at the photos. And I just said to her, I said, I don't think those are stencils. I think they're free art. And then she said something that I hadn't thought of. She said, I think it looks like a book illustrator. I said, oh. Anyway, she got her phone out and got searching, you know. And we got more and more interested and more excited that we found all these references about Wyndham Payne on the internet. So I went home and I did some more searching and made contact with Paul, who's sitting over there, grandson of Wyndham Payne. Now, I was going to Paul because I wanted him to tell me more about these murals. I wanted more history, but he didn't know anything. He didn't know anything at all. No story in the family, no nothing about the kids, nothing about the youth leader there, nothing. And he was able to tell me that a lot of Wyndham Payne's work was in the V&A. So more exciting. I was excited before I knew who it was and just got more excited. So I rang up Betty Hodder and asked her would she come with me to visit the home.
And because I thought 2 brains are better than one with trying to find the children's ward and the murals, because the home had been adapted, so you're never quite sure where things are. But by the time we got to the home, Rita Ellis, who we both knew and worked with, she had told the nursing staff that she'd remembered the room. So I don't think she remembered the murals, but she remembered the room. So by the time we got there, we could see the board. So I started a search for David Rhodes, and Moira and Jane in Connaughton tried to track him down, and they managed to. But also on Facebook, Penny Duffield put that message on Facebook for me, because I'm not on there, and within 1 minute Ted Taylor had responded, and he just lives along the road from me, so I had a chat with him, and then Roy Cousins, so the builder. So that was absolutely brilliant, because it was Roy who did work on the murals back in 1992. What Roy told me was that they had wanted the murals painted over. And he said words to the effect, I don't know whether he's here today, is he? Is Roy here? Roy is here, marvellous. You can correct me, Roy, if I'm wrong, what you're saying. But he said to me, he said, I told them, you can't do that. It's important, they're important. So he gave them free time, free work to put lining paper on the walls to protect those murals. So thanks ever so much, Roy. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be looking at these photographs originally. So they've actually been protected twice now. So these are the minutes out of the History Centre. It was 1935 September they accepted the offer to paint the pictures. November 35 there was a vote of thanks. 36 in March there was the AGM, a delightful day of painted pictures done by Mr. Wyndham Payne's kindness, and for which many thanks must be given. So that's when they happened. So they were done between September and November. The story also had the actual story of Wyndham and the boys in the camp, but they wrote, his amusing pictures are still there as bright as ever, helped by some touching up by Reverend Cyril. And they are as bright as ever, I think. They're lovely colours. So, Paul visited Lyme Regis for the first time, and it's not easy to see. Not easy to see, but you can see the frame that David Rhodes puts around that section. It's about 7 feet, I think, not sure. But that's where they were hidden. Sadly, we couldn't get to them that day. But the next day, Steve, the maintenance guy, had carefully taken off the boarding. And there's John as well. He's our expert photographer there. But John took that photograph the following day in the afternoon. We went up, rushed up there, because there was no patient in the room, so that was good. But lovely colours. On this one you can see there's a little bit of screw and nail damage at the bottom if you look hard. But magically, he got rid of it. So there's a really nice improved photograph there. So, but I've put it's a gift to the town, because the story booklet said, described the Lyme Regis Hospital as a child of the town. So it was a gift to the hospital, but it was actually a gift to the town. So just to give you a flavour of Wyndham's work, he was the illustrator of the first UK edition of Wyndham Willows. And this shows the book that William Connolly and Paul Payne published in 2020. But of course it didn't have anything about the murals in it, because Paul didn't know. So that was the book that was published in 2020. And then this was a fun afternoon, having lots of photographs and videoing of the murals. You can see Heather there, and Roy, and Paul, myself, and Rita Ellis, who helped us. and she was interviewed, and Roy was interviewed by Eleanor, who's sitting down here, videoing and photographing. And yeah, it was great fun. And we even had another resident, Poppy and Celia, who came to inspect us and do a tour around the room several times. So that was our fun afternoon. So, and then Betty Hodder came up with this lovely photograph, and I know Christine Matthews here has got another copy of this one, which is lovely. We've got from the left Jennifer Dixon, which we haven't been able to contact, Angela Tucker, Percy Goldsworthy, patient in the bed. Notice the sign above his head, matron's office. Christine Matthews and Betty Hodder. So Angela tells me that it has to be before September 1990 because she went away and did a training. But we don't know precisely when this was taken. But interestingly, Angela said to me just this week, reminded from the photograph, that this is when we used to have time to care. And you have to ask the question, if you haven't got time to care, what are we doing as a health service? But anyway, there are the murals. And, oh, there, that's the little pig and the rat and the duck section. So that wasn't protected. Those were in the article there. Okay, so some lovely animal pictures along there. But that's a really nice photo, really sort of happy photo. It's lovely. So, sad loss of our hospital. I didn't realise that there's been 4 private companies in there already. There might even be more that I didn't manage to track down. Now, this is my physio department. I'm utterly ashamed of it. Look at it. It's got vegetation climbing out of the top, and disgusting. The inside's not so bad, but it's disgusting. But this is what it used to look like. Anybody like to tell me who that gentleman is? You perhaps don't recognise him standing up. Peter Williams, definitely. That's Pete Williams. So that's a walker that he could shift around the department. And he is one of the twins that was born at Windsor Terrace, of course, with Stan. So you know those two. So Pete was deputy head at the primary school for a long time, and then councillor, as was Stan. So we used to have time to care. So let's come back to the things that we can learn from the people in the 1800s. What we should be trying to achieve and not to do any harm. And when I was researching the medieval hospital rules, I found this. Sick and weak people should be admitted kindly and mercifully. That's a good start as well. I don't think frail, vulnerable people queuing up in ambulances and queuing up in A&E is kind or merciful. It's also about not doing staff harm, because only yesterday there was a report that came out, the harm that's being done to staff that can't deliver the services that they want to deliver in emergency services, and they're so, mentally so stressful because of people dying. Right, so dynamic people and communities, vision, generosity, commitment. Lyme Regis Hospital was a child of the town. And we can feel proud of our predecessors. Thank you to all those that have contributed and assisted. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rachael. That was fantastic. And I've got to say, the illustrations in the hospital, it was a privilege to go and see them. They're absolutely wonderful. And there will be an article in the summer all over the town featuring some of those pictures. So, are there any questions for